Hello and welcome. Happy Wednesday to all the Spiritual Events and Directory tribe. My name is Kelly Kingston.
And I'm Graham Donnelly.
And we are here to talk to you today about different aspects of business and being in small business. So I've been in small business probably now for on and off for about 20 years. And I have done poor business and I have done great business. I started off as a practitioner in the spiritual industry doing massage therapy, energetic alignment, and in the last couple of years bought a bioresonance feedback machine. So coming from a non-educational space, didn't like school, had no idea about different aspects of where I wanted to go, what I wanted to be. I did not know business until I met this absolutely amazing, beautiful man. And so until probably about 8 years ago, when Graham and I signed our soul contract to spend the rest of our days together, I stepped out of my practitioner business to learn more about business, because I really wanted to understand what I was doing wrong in my own wellness practice to be a better version of who I needed to be to live my purpose and love my passion and do that every single day. So some of those things that, you know, we encounter or want to get into is doing business with beautiful, like-minded individuals. So at what stage, when we go in and do a joint venture or a collective event or whatever the case may be, do we need to sign contracts? Bit of a scary topic, hey Graham?
Well, it can be, especially if you've not done it before and it's not something you're familiar with. And as most of you know, I've come from a completely different space and been in the accounting profession for most of my career.
Yeah.
And the thing that I realise is that when you're running a small business, you've got to wear a lot of hats.
Yes.
You're the sales manager and the admin manager and the production manager, and you hire and fire, and there's just so many things that you have to take responsibility for.
Yeah.
Your primary objectives are, of course, to create income, run a business at a profit, and in order to do that, you've got to come across things that put you outside your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you were just referring to.
Absolutely.
So one of those areas that puts a lot of people, particularly, you know, in our audience, I think, outside their comfort zone are areas that involve agreements and, I suppose, legal issues. Now, we're not here, of course, we're not lawyers, we're not here to give legal advice.
Definitely not lawyers, not me anyway. I'm here to share experience. That's
Exactly.
all we're doing, and educating on what we've gone through, what we are going through, and possibly giving you some tips and tricks that can support you where you are in your business, so that you can thrive in your spiritual business. That's all we're doing. No advice given here at all.
So we're not suggesting that, you know, every small business needs to have a good lawyer on tap. Obviously, it's a highly expensive process, but sometimes we need to have support from quality accountants, advisors, lawyers, whoever they may be, to help us down the path where we are feeling a little bit uncertain and where we're literally outside our comfort zone.
Yeah, and also I'm just going to add there, other beautiful business people that we support. Like I support Sarah, Sarah supports me, and if she needs something in her business, she'll speak to me or some of her other friends, and if I need something in my business, I'll speak to Sarah, and we will then collaborate on what the best step is moving forward. And I really believe that, you know, having beautiful people that you can trust and rely on who they're using to support them in their business is an added bonus. Okay, so it's all about building relationships in business, which is a key. Okay.
So we don't need to, you know, bear the cost every time we do something, but I think there's a few things that we've put together that might help people to guide them along the lines of, do they need to engage external support, or are they okay to do things on their own? And there's lots of times when you don't need to go and spend a lot of money on legal advice.
Yeah.
I know that you've been doing a bit of homework on the types of contracts and agreements that people can enter into in business. So maybe we do that. And then at the end of that, we've now got a couple of checklists that we've created as well that we can let the viewers know that might help them along that path.
Absolutely. So the different areas, so what's the different types of contracts and agreements that are out there, and what makes up a contract and or agreement? So a written agreement, of course, with the two signatures of the two people that are going into the agreement, joint venture, business partnership, whatever the case may be. You can also use text messages. So people texting backwards and forwards. Okay, this is proof that two people have entered into an agreement, and they can do screenshots, print them out as evidence for, whatever agreements have been spoken about in doing business together. Okay, the second one is a verbal contract. My word is my bond. And this is a really sketchy one because there's no proof. Okay, it's he said, she said, he said, she said. But, building up to having a verbal agreement, there's got to be some sort of text message saying, oh yeah, I want to do business with you, or other written agreements, whether it's emails or text messages or Facebook Messenger, WhatsApps, whatever the case may be. So, and sometimes people misunderstand a verbal contract in different areas. So it's really, 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 really important to stick to number one and do written agreements across the board, okay? And always get them witnessed or signed off by somebody else. I believe is really, really important. Having a second set of eyes over and above the two parties that are going into a contract. Okay, and the third one is a physical contract, and that's the handshake. That's the old the farmers deal, the handshake deal. These are people that wear their heart on their sleeve. Okay, they don't want to have to go into the logistics. They don't want to have to go into the painfulness of having to put the contract together. These are the people that are really, really into supporting other people in business. Their word is their bond, and real genuine people normally that do handshake deals. So a binding legal contract and agreement is two signatures from both parties involved in the contract agreement. Okay, it's not one signature. Okay, the only way a contract can be secured with one signature is if there is money transferred from one account to the other. And so if that's the case, that means two signatures are not applicable, and that is still a legal binding contract. That is the only way, other than having two signatures on a contract, that can actually be legal in a court of law.
I think the lawyers refer to that as being agreement by action. So people have said, I agree to your terms because I paid you what you asked me to pay you.
Yes.
I think that's where that comes from.
But we're still not offering advice.
We don't think that's the right.
We don't think that that's
strategy,
right.
By the way.
But I have encountered conversations with other business people where that situation has happened. And if somebody sends you an invoice and there has been no contract or agreement in place, this is not a legal valid invoice. Okay, so some people over the last couple of months I've been speaking to, and has also happened to myself, and I'm just really wanting to share with people. So if somebody's sending you an invoice and you have not agreed to it, it is not a legal valid invoice. And the steps to take, I'm going to go through that after Graham has then gone through the different areas of the areas that Graham's going to go through. So a invoice sent to you, I'm just going to reiterate this, an invoice sent to you that you have not signed into a contract with the person that's sending the invoice is not a valid invoice. So just wanting to make that clear.
Apart from that, it's really poor business.
It's extremely poor business.
It's very presumptuous of the person to actually, send an invoice on their understanding when there was no agreement or no contract.
Unethical, I think.
Unethical is another word for it, absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm going to hand the next stage over to Graham, and he can give his little bit.
Sure. What we've done here is just put together, I think, four points where I think it just helps people to understand what the processes might be.
Yeah.
And the first one is very, very clear, and I know that we both agree on this, and that is do not enter into verbal contracts. Don't do it. I mean, it's so vague, and I've personally had experiences with this in throughout my career as well, where you've sat in a meeting with someone, you've taken notes, they've taken notes, or they've understood something. You've then gone back, and I've then usually put it into writing.
Yep.
And taken it back to the parties who I literally just came out of a meeting with, and I say, well, this is what I've understood from our meeting 15 minutes ago. Is that okay? And they've just gone berserk in one case that I can recall. And I went, wow, it's like different people hear different things. They have different perceptions. So my first sort of point would be don't enter into verbal contracts. A lot of non-lawyers don't realize that a verbal contract can be enforced in certain circumstances. So what we actually would prefer to see is, of course, that it is committed to writing. So don't enter into them at all. I think it's important to set out the rules of the game. Yeah. And that works for both parties. Absolutely. So there's nothing to be questioned. No. Have it tabled, pass it back and forwards. Yep. And so what it does, it greatly reduces the chances of a dispute in the future, because both parties can go back to the written agreement. There's much less room for misinterpretation. Yeah. I know that's kind of where lawyers live, and it's about what the words say. So you've got to be a little careful about that. Yeah. And that kind of leads me into point two. Okay, so just on the back end of that, I just want to add something. So I know that as spiritual business owners, because I'm one myself, and so is Graham. Even knowing that he does do accounting, business strategy, and a whole heap of different things, we're extremely spiritual beings, and we walk our walk and we talk our talk. So we want to be able to provide this information to you so that you have this in front of mind when you want to do a event with someone, or do a joint venture, because as heart-centered people, individuals, we want to be in community, and we want to be around like-minded, heart-centered people. So sometimes we go, oh, you know what, I love you, and we're doing something similar but different, and we don't need a contract. I highly suggest that you always have a written agreement and both of you sign off on it. And it's not that you don't trust each other, it's that you respect each other so much of where you're both currently in your business, that the rules of the game are clear. Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. Okay? Yeah. Would you agree? 100%. Yeah. 100%. Okay. And sometimes, we have to enter into agreements of some sort, whether it be contracts for supply or services or something, with people who don't share our value systems. Yeah. And that makes it even more important. But even those that do, like you say, I would highly recommend that verbal contracts just don't cut it. So the second thing that I would highly recommend is that you get a lawyer, accountant, or someone with more business experience to review your written contracts and agreements. Yeah. Because they'll have a different perspective. And words are very important. So the way an agreement is written can be critical to the outcome. And again, we just don't want it to be left to chance. So there's lots of important clauses and document inclusions that I think are very important to make sure that if something does go wrong in different people, performance is not met, or conditions are different. Absolutely. There's nothing more obvious to a change of heart than when money or other things like that are involved, because it flips people quickly.
Absolutely.
And that's really important. So make sure you've got someone who you can trust. If that's a lawyer or accountant or some other business advisor, then have them that allows you to review what you've done.
Yep.
Way to save money in accessing professional advice is to
Yep.
actually do the agreements yourself.
Yep. And then
Write down what it is that you both agreed to.
Yeah.
Agree to it between yourselves, that the written word is what you understand.
Yeah.
And then give it to your lawyer or accountant or someone to review.
Yeah.
That way, they don't have to spend the time creating it.
Yeah.
They simply have to review it. So generally they're time-based billers,
Yep.
which means that they're going to spend less time on your file, which
Mm-hmm.
means the cost is lower.
And you can also download a templated copy of a contract from the internet. So you could draft one yourself and then send it to somebody professional that you do trust, whether it be accountant, a lawyer, or somebody else that's been in business a lot longer than you, that is, that's got all the, tips and tricks on what to do and how to go about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one, the third one I've collected here is, look,
This
it seems
is what I'm
so
going to go like
obvious,
this.
but it comes up and has come up many times, and that is
Yeah.
always read the contract or agreement before you sign it.
Yeah.
Don't just take it on face value, on trust.
Yes.
As I say, you would be surprised at the number of people who end up in courts or in dispute because they signed something because they thought that what they were signing was right,
Yes.
and then they find that it wasn't. And I can guarantee you that if you stand up in front of any tribunal, judge, adjudicator of any sort,
Yeah.
on any level, and you say, oh, well, I signed it, but I didn't read it, I just assumed that it was right, ignorance is no excuse.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
So make sure it says what you want it to say and make an effort to understand it. If you don't understand something that's in the contract,
Yeah.
make sure you understand it and rewrite it in the words that you understand or that you both understand.
Yeah.
I think that's
So-
really important.
We just have seeing Sharon said hello. Hello, Sharon, Trudy and Joan. Thank you for joining us. So, Graham, what's next?
This is a little corporate, this one, but the fourth one that I've just got here is that if you're entering into agreements with non-individuals,
And their
so
companies.
that's companies, and there could be trusts or other corporate structures, then you need to be entering into those agreements that comply with the rules of that entity. So companies obviously have constitutions, trusts have deeds.
Yeah.
So you got to be sure, because you can't enter into an agreement, I don't believe, that contradicts the rules, the governing rules of that entity. So
Yeah.
if you trade through a company structure or a trust structure, then any agreements you enter into can't contradict that governing document. So it's a bit
Absolutely.
technical, that one, and if you're in that space, then often you need to look outside the scope of your own business to seek advice, but very important.
Yeah, and always ask as many questions. There's no dumb
None
question
at all.
ever. And if somebody says that, well, you're talking to the wrong person, honestly. Get as much information and advice as you can to make the right choices so that you can thrive in business, okay? Because it's nothing worse than not knowing and being too scared to ask the question, to then not have the right choice to then sign on the dotted line. Trudy saying, thank you, great. What was that? Thank you, great timing, as I'm just starting my own little cleaning business.
Nice.
Yeah, Trudy, awesome.
Make sure all those T's are crossed and I's are dotted, Trudy, because it's very
Yeah.
important.
And especially for you, Trudy, I don't know whether you're going to be going into real estate agencies or, working for other companies like banks and going in and cleaning them or whatever. You really need to really read, ask them if you can take away the contract first, because you need somebody else to look over it before you actually sign it off on anything. And if you need any tips for business planning, you can always see me, because my book is your ultimate business guide for the wellness business owners. So if you need any more support around that, just hook me up.
There's just one other one I wanted to mention that we often enter into agreements with people that we employ.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of people go, well, that's okay. I'm just employing someone. It'll all be okay. But employment agreements or some sort of, again, rules of the game, what you expect of them and what they can expect of you is really important. And there's, again, I could sit here and talk all night about cases that I've personally been involved in with clients where they've actually tried to maybe terminate an employee and then fair trades and other industrial relations people get involved. It gets very, very messy. So I think that's just another one. That is a common agreement that a lot of our viewers would enter into at different times. If you are employing people, then make sure that there is some sort of agreement or documents that sets out the rules of the game.
Absolutely.
And it can also then apply to contractors as well. So if you're engaging contractors to provide services to your business or to your clients, even more importantly, then let's make sure that we're really clear on that. So
and even for you, Trudy, and this is a question to you, and you don't have to answer this or not, you could just sit with it. Are you going to employ people in your business, or are you going to ask them to be a contractor to your business? Because both ways could benefit you, but from my personal perspective, I would much rather use contractors than employees, because you don't have the huge tax obligations, you don't have super obligations, you don't have the 3-month employee obligation, and there's so much more. So really, really do your homework, do planning, write things down, any questions that you don't understand. And if you want to PM me, I'm more than happy to support you in answering any questions that I can, or put you onto somebody that's more professional to get a much clearer answer.
Cool. Well, they're the sort of 5 key tips, but don't think that they're all inclusive or, comprehensive list. They're really just the tip of the iceberg. And make sure that you have in your network people that you can call upon to help you in that space.
So the last little thing, like the last thing I said before Graham came in and spoke about those 5 different areas of contracting and agreements, was about people sending an invoice that was invalid, like you did not have a contract with them, you didn't have a verbal contract, you didn't have a written agreement, but they're sending you an invoice because they think that you owe them money for whatever you purported an agreement with. So if they persist, they will then say this invoice is overdue, and then you then can respond to blah, 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 blah. There was no legal contract or agreement, and I never agreed to paying this invoice. If it keeps happening, and if they keep sending the invoice after you've said that one little phrase, I'll just repeat it. There was no legal contract or agreement, and I never agreed to paying this invoice. And if they keep sending, saying, this is overdue, I'm going to send this to the debt collection agency, they've got no legal standing, so you don't get upset, you don't get anything. And the worst thing that can come of this, from my understanding, is that they can go to QCAT, and QCAT is Queensland Civil Administrations Tribunal, and they're all over Australia, over the country. And they can apply to putting in an application to minor civil disputes, minor debt. So they're putting in an application, you get served that application, and then you respond to that application with a Form 7, and that is a response from a minor civil dispute, minor debt, And then once you've actually submitted your response, it then goes back to where the application was lodged, whether it's, Brisbane or Logan or Strathpine or Caboolture or wherever, it doesn't matter. And then it is heard in front of a tribunal, and then they make the decision from there whether that gets settled or you have to pay or not have to pay. And if there's a dispute in that, then they then decide whether it goes to court. Yeah. So I just want, the reason for this is not to get into a fear-based state, okay? It's something we can't control. The locus of control is, you know, can we control it? Absolutely not. Somebody thinks that you owe them something. What influence do you have over it? You can respond in kind and stay in your power and, you know, treat the situation like just being neutral. Don't hate. We don't want karma. We don't want any of that stuff. We want to be able to stay true to who we are. We respond to the allegations from the application. End of story.
Some of the, I mean, you've seen the QCAT forms, the tribunal forms. They can be a little daunting, and it's this time when I would probably come back to the second point we spoke about earlier, and that was, you know, make sure you've got someone on tap that can review those sorts of things.
Absolutely.
So you put down your version of events,
yeah,
and follow the bouncing ball on the forms, but they are a legal form and they are a bit daunting. So, you know, it's a good time to be calling on someone, and we've helped a number of clients do these things over time.
Yeah.
Not in a lawyer's perspective, but just purely as a, does this make sense? Is the person who's going to be reading this at the tribunal going to understand what I'm saying and understand my point of view? Absolutely. And as long as we get our point of view across, then we've got a fair chance of it being a favourable outcome. Yeah,
and if you have supporting documentation, that always is the best.
Yeah.
And what have you done, Graham?
I've turned our while you're doing that, and we're looking at some nice pictures of Kelly's desktop. I thought probably just in conclusion, you know, running a small business is tough. Don't be surprised if you find it difficult from time to time.
Yeah.
And what we want to try to do is to avoid conflict that may arise in the future, purely because we didn't do the right thing at the beginning.
Yes.
You know, we didn't take the time to make it clear, to make sure that our relationships, business relationships, are clear.
Yeah.
And like I said, that we don't rely on the verbal word.
Yeah.
We rely on the written word and make sure that everyone's in agreement. So, you know, make sure that you're, you know, don't get scared. As you said, it's not too daunting, but it can be a bit for possibly some of our listeners who haven't got experience in that. It is the game of business, and that's what we're here to do, as well as to provide service and value to our customers and our clients. So.
Yeah, and you know, being spiritual ourselves and wanting to support other spiritual businesses in business predominantly, because that's where we're both at, we just want to share education, experiences, and different knowledge that we've been in business that then supports maybe a situation that you may be going through, or you might have a friend that's going through a situation, and just to let you know that you're not alone.
For sure. And these conflicts can be really time consuming, can't they? And energy sapping on every level. So again, we just want to try to avoid those so that we can just concentrate on doing the thing that we love to do more often.
Yep.
And making sure that these things don't pop up to distract us from
what we're doing,
from that purpose, and our passion.
Yeah, and what we love to do from our heart. Hey,
absolutely.
Yeah. So if anyone has any questions, please inbox us. Let us know. We are here to support in every single possible way in business. I just want to thank the lovely Sarah Watkins. You are the best. You are totally amazing, and I am so grateful that you are in our lives. Thank you so much for having us on your Facebook page and sharing our stories so that we as business owners can support up-and-coming business owners in the spiritual industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you and good night.